Imagine stepping from a narrow, muddy path as dusk settles, the world around you swallowed by a thick, silvery fog. The air, thick and cold, clings to your skin, muffling the sounds of the surrounding woods until only your own heartbeat remains. Ahead, a faint glow flickers through the mist, a phantom light that draws you closer with each uncertain step. And then it appears, the towering, rusted gates of a forgotten world, an entrance crowned with faded gold filigree and scrollwork that once gleamed in the sun. Now, the letters hanging above the arch are barely legible, their paint chipped and peeling. Cirque des Rêves Oubliés, the Circus of Forgotten Dreams. The gates hang ajar, groaning softly as a lonely breeze stirs them. They are adorned with tarnished brass masks, one locked in a permanent smile, the other in a silent frown, a perfect emblem for the circus's promise of both delight and despair. Tangled vines snake up the iron bars, their leaves glistening with dew, slowly reclaiming what was once a grand threshold to wonder. Just inside, the ground is a mosaic of damp, faded ticket stubs, each stamped with swirling fonts and dates from decades past. Some speak of midnight performances under a full moon, others of matinees that time itself has long since forgotten. As you cross into this forgotten domain, the fog thickens, coiling around your ankles and obscuring the world you left behind. The silence is profound, almost a physical weight. But if you listen closely, you might catch it. The distant, discordant echo of calliope music, a haunting melody that twists and turns through the mist. The sound doesn't just play, it beckons you deeper, promising secrets and stories that wait in the gloom. On either side of the entrance, two weathered statues stand as silent witnesses. Their stone faces are carved in exaggerated expressions, one with eyes wide in childlike wonder, the other frozen in a scream that no one can hear. Time and the elements have softened their features, but their presence is a heavy one, as if they are watching, waiting for the show to begin once more. From one statue's outstretched arm, an old hand-painted sign dangles and sways. Welcome, brave wanderer. Beware what you wish for. The air here carries a peculiar scent, a blend of phantom cotton candy and damp earth, tinged with the faintest trace of something like smoke. The path ahead is lined with cracked cobblestones, their surfaces slick with moss. Stray feathers and lonely glittering sequins litter the ground, the ghosts of costumes and performances lost to the ages. To the right, the remnants of a tattered circus banner flutter weakly, its once bright colors now muted to shades of gray. The faded images show acrobats frozen in mid-leap, elephants balancing on impossibly small stools, and a ringmaster tipping his hat to an invisible crowd. Each illustration is a whisper of the circus's former glory, a place where astonishment once reigned. But in this decay, in this ghostly atmosphere, there is an undeniable sense of anticipation. The entrance, though abandoned, still holds the promise of a story, waiting just beyond the haze. This descent into darkness is not unique to a place. Sometimes it happens within a person. Consider the artist, whose career began to flourish just as a subtle darkness crept along the edges of each canvas. Friends and critics alike began to notice a shift, not just in the work, but in the artist themselves. The once vibrant palettes gave way to deeper, more muted tones. Themes of isolation and inner turmoil began to dominate, as if the canvas had become a battleground between light and shadow. This transformation was a gradual, almost imperceptible poisoning of the soul. Early journals reveal hints of anxiety, often masked by dry humor. In one letter, the artist wrote, "Sometimes I feel as though I'm painting to keep the walls from closing in." These struggles quietly seeped into the creative process. The studio, once bustling with friends, grew unnaturally quiet. Sessions stretched late into the night, with only the flicker of candlelight illuminating works that seemed to stare back. The faces in the portraits became haunted, eyes gazing into some distant sorrow. Landscapes, which had once celebrated the vitality of nature, began to depict barren trees and stormy skies. At one exhibition, a critic remarked, "It is as if the artist is painting the world as seen through rain-soaked glass." This period was marked by mounting personal hardships. Financial instability loomed as art sales faltered. Letters from this time speak of unpaid bills and the constant threat of eviction. Relationships frayed under the pressure. Friends reported periods of withdrawal and a growing obsession that often ended in the destruction of completed canvases. He sought solace in the green haze of absinthe, and soon the line between inspiration and intoxication blurred. Sketches from these days are frenetic and raw, lines jagged, forms unfinished, as if the artist was racing against invisible demons. Yet the work from this era resonates with a profound, terrifying honesty. Each brushstroke echoes the artist's internal battles. The pain, the isolation, the darkness, they became a wellspring for haunting imagery that would later be celebrated as his most powerful contributions. The artist's descent was not just a story of suffering, but of transformation. The shadows cast across the canvas were reflections of an inner world in turmoil, a world that, through art, found a voice that was raw, vulnerable, and unforgettable. Sometimes such stories are not left on a canvas, but are bound in leather and ink. Let us turn to one of the most chilling artifacts of any haunted tale, the Crimson Diary. This small red book, its cover worn and stained by time, is far more than just pages filled with old script. Its presence is both a clue and a curse, a thread that ties the living to those who once walked these haunted halls. When first discovered, it appears almost innocuous, but as its pages are turned, its secrets begin to bleed into the present, blurring the line between memory and reality. The entries are written in a delicate, meticulous hand. At first, they seem ordinary, describing daily life, but soon the tone shifts. The writer's words grow anxious, sentences trailing off, as if interrupted by a sudden fear. There are mentions of strange noises in the night, footsteps echoing where no one should be, whispers behind closed doors, and the constant unnerving feeling of being watched. A name emerges from frantic script, Akane, a young woman whose fate becomes a central, horrifying mystery. Each entry peels back another layer of a dark history. The diary describes chilling rituals, secret gatherings that took place under the cover of darkness, and a series of vanishing residents. The most disturbing passages appear near the end, their ink smeared by trembling hands. Here, the writer confesses to witnessing a tragedy, one that left a permanent scar on the house and its inhabitants. There are pleas for forgiveness and dire warnings to anyone who might read these words in the future. What makes the Crimson Diary so unsettling is the way it interacts with the world. Those who read from its pages report hearing faint voices, the whispers of the past. Sometimes they manifest as fragments of conversation, spoken in languages both familiar and long forgotten. At other times, they are nothing more than chilling sighs or the distant sound of sobbing, barely audible but impossible to ignore. Readers have claimed to see fleeting shadows in their periphery or to feel an icy touch on their skin as they delve deeper into its contents. It's as though the diary acts as a conduit, awakening the lingering spirits who poured their fears onto its pages. It is a record and a warning, a testament to the pain that echoes through a place, waiting to be uncovered by those brave or foolish enough to listen. And from such stories, an image emerges, an image that has haunted humanity since we first understood the meaning of blood. Imagine a stage bathed in shadow where a figure emerges, face smeared with crimson, features contorted in pain or rage. This is the bleeding face, a motif that grips us with a primal terror. Its origins trace back to ancient rituals, where blood was seen as a conduit between the living and the supernatural. The visual of blood streaked across human skin became shorthand for a breach in the barrier between worlds, a sign that something unnatural was afoot. In literature, the bleeding face became an emblem of psychological torment. Shakespeare's Macbeth is haunted by visions of blood, a theme that would echo through centuries of storytelling. But it was cinema that seared the image into our collective subconscious. Consider the classic film Carrie from 1976. Sissy Spacek's character, drenched in pig's blood, stares at the jeering crowd. The scene is shocking, but it's the close-up of her face, frozen between humiliation and rage, that we remember. The blood isn't just gore, it marks the moment innocence is annihilated and a terrible vengeance is born. The artists of gore, like Tom Savini, understood this power. In films like Dawn of the Dead, they gave audiences wounds that felt alarmingly real. The visceral impact of a bleeding face, especially when paired with wide, terror-stricken eyes, elicits an instinctual response rooted in our fear of injury and death. But the terror is not just physical, it's psychological. It forces us to confront the fragility of our own faces, the masks we wear, and the horrors that might lurk beneath. When a character's features are obscured by blood, we see the familiar mask of humanity stripped away. It is a face we cannot look away from, even as it confronts us with the terror we most fear to see unveiled. And where do we most often confront a face? In the familiar, everyday experience of standing before a mirror. At first glance, your reflection seems simple, a faithful twin that copies your every move. But this mirrored doppelganger is a paradox that has puzzled us for centuries. It begins with a simple trick of light, but ends in a place of profound unease. The mirror does not swap left and right, it reverses front and back. It flips you along an invisible axis, creating an illusion of a world just behind the glass, a world you can see but never touch. This leads to a fascinating and unsettling thought. Your mirror image looks just like you, but it is fundamentally different. It is a version of you that can never exist in your world. The twin who lives behind the glass, it knows your face, but not your soul. It is a perfect imitation, yet fundamentally alien. This raises questions about identity itself. When you look in the mirror, are you seeing yourself as others do? Or are you meeting an opposite, unreachable version of yourself? When you stare into your own eyes, who or what is staring back? Folklore and horror have always warned us about the world behind the glass. It is often portrayed as an alternate reality, hauntingly similar, but never quite the same. A place where our hidden selves, our darker impulses, can take form. This enduring fascination with our mirrored selves reminds us that even the most mundane reflections can reveal profound mysteries about perception, reality, and the stranger we see every single day. And what is horror, if not a question left unanswered, a mystery that lingers? Imagine standing on the edge of a windswept cliff, the world around you shrouded in that same dense, swirling fog.
You can't see more than a few feet ahead, and every sound seems amplified. The distant toll of a bell, the rhythmic crash of waves, and most hauntingly, the ceaseless ticking of a clock you cannot see. This is the essence of a cliffhanger, a moment suspended in uncertainty, the answers hidden just out of reach. The term itself comes from 19th century fiction, where characters were sometimes literally left hanging off a cliff. But its power lies in psychology. Our minds crave completion. An unfinished story is a wound that remains open, an unresolved chord that refuses to fade. A story that ends in uncertainty lingers in our minds. We replay it, we speculate, and we yearn for resolution. The ticking clock becomes a metaphor for our own anxious hearts, beating in time with the suspense. In the fog of a cliffhanger, time feels elastic. Every second stretches, and possibilities multiply in the haze. Writers and filmmakers use this moment to ignite our imagination. What will happen next? Is the hero doomed, or is salvation just beyond the mist? The answers are tantalizingly near, yet maddeningly obscured. The fog invites you to step closer, to listen for the next tick, and to wonder if the mist will ever lift.